just going to drive you, everybody's going to drive around real slow. Either Allison or myself will do that. We'll just kind of talk to you, show you everything firsthand, right? Once we show you the entire course, we're going to do a handful of runs. We're going to get everybody, we'll get the instructors. The first run you're going to do after we do our tour is we're going to hop in with you as instructors. So we're going to get into the passenger seat and we're going to have you go at this, right? We're going to go through all the modes. So that first run with us, we're going to have you start off in normal mode. Once we get out of the car, we'll send you again for the second run. We're going to go up to sport mode. We're going to do another run in track mode. And then we're going to do another run in normal mode. We start building on that, right? And then starting back at the bottom in normal mode. Once we do all those runs, we're going to give you a practice lap and then 2 time laps by yourself, right? So you can choose what mode you want to be in. But we do that because we like a little friendly competition out here, right? You guys can bet to see who does the dishes for a week or something, right? A little friendly wager. We have, of course, prizes of unspeakable value for the winner at the end of the day. It's fun. So the way it'll work here is we have our starting line. We'll have 2 tall orange cones. One of them will be staged there, right? And we'll be pointing you out, letting you know when it's safe to go on course. You'll accelerate up to another set of cones, hard on the gas, shifting into second gear, somewhere around that second set of cones, and then continuing to upshift, getting up into 4th gear as we head down the straightaway. You're going to get into 4th gear if you're in the manual, and you're going to come up to this brake marker, right? So this isn't like the street, right? You see a stop sign on the street, you're slowing towards it. This is where we initiate our braking. So once we get to that point, we'll start to get on the brakes, slowing the car down, and in the manuals, we'll do our downshift. We'll go from 4th to 3rd, 3rd to 2nd, before we get to the corner, the entry of the corner, okay? So we want to do our downshifts in the late, not braking zone. We don't want to be right here, jam it down into 3rd gear, right? We want to start reducing our speed first, and then start making those downshifts. Obviously, if you're in an automatic, you have, who's in an automatic in here? A bunch of them. You guys have the option of just running it in auto, right, with the transmission, do all the shifting itself, or you can run it in manual mode with the paddle shifters. Just know if you do put it in manual mode, right, you pull back past drive in the manual, it will hold that gear until you pull the paddle shift. So if it's going, it's not accelerating anymore, tell yourself, grab that right paddle, start upshifting, right? And then of course you'll have to do your downshifts once you get
So what gears would the manual be?
So the manual will be in the auto, you mean, with the paddle shifters?
Yes. I'm sorry, the auto.
Yeah, so you'll go, I think you'll go, I can't remember, I've driven the auto for so long. I think it's up to 4th, and then I think it's the same, back down to 2nd.
Okay.
I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. They don't let me drive here very often, especially not the automatics. So we'll do that on these first handful of runs, right, as we're going through the different modes, right? But we're going to come to a stop as we get through this corner. So we'll come in here, we'll turn into the corner, we'll let the car kind of move its way out to the outside by this other turn-in cone. At that point, we'll turn it down into this apex. At that apex, we're going to have you guys stop these first handful of runs. One of us will be standing there just giving you feedback. Right? We're going to watch and see what you do through this section, talk to you for 10 seconds, quick feedback, and then send you on your way to go through the rest of the course. With these green cones out there, right, there's our turn-in cones, there's our apex cones. You're basically trying to connect the dots with a very smooth, fluid line between it, right? Coming in here, turning in, allowing the car to come up to the outside, getting right down next to this apex, setting up back to the outside to turn in for this corner. That takes us into our slalom section. So in the slalom, you're going to see 1 cone standing, right, and 2 or 3 laying down. Looks like we have 3 laying down. You can see how it's kind of pointed. There's an arrow. It's saying go that way, right? It's pointing you in the direction it wants you to go. So you go to the right, left, right. You'll accelerate out, again, connecting the dots. As you get down here to the end of the course, which is right out here, our timing beacon is going to be set up there. We'll point that out as we're going around. So once you get through that timing beacon, you can start slowing the car down, right? Because the next thing we want to do is get into our stop box. So we have these large, tall orange cones out there in an imaginary box. Once you go past that timing beacon, we want you to come to a complete stop within the confines of those cones, right? In that box. It's a complete stop, sit there for a half a second, and then roll on through. The reason we do that is because when we do our timed runs, we have some penalties for you guys, right? Once you go out there, push the cars, have fun, But if you hit a cone, for every cone you hit, it's a 2-second penalty added onto your time. And remember, somebody has to win that awesome prize at the end of the day. So best time gets it. If you're out of the stop box, it's an additional 5 seconds. So the nose is out, the tail's out. So you can roll in there as slow as you want. We don't care. Just stop it in that box, right? We'll be watching for those in the later runs. So like I said, with each run, we're going to go through the modes. Normal, sport, track, back to normal. What are some of the things that change when we go through the modes? Suspension, right? Everybody kind of familiar with the Magna Ride suspension? Pretty cool system, right? So what they've done is the fluid inside the shock housing, right? They can magnetize it. So they send an electric current into that fluid and it changes the viscosity, right? The thinner the fluid is, the less current going through it, the faster it moves through the valving, which allows the car to be more compliant. It'll roll more, it'll lean more. We want that in conditions where we don't have as much traction. So in the snow, the rain, right, that slippery mode frees up the suspension so it has a little more body roll and it doesn't jar or put too much force or energy into a tire all at once and lose grip, right? As we go up through the modes, that suspension is going to stiffen. It makes that platform a little stiffer, flatter, right? And it will transfer weight faster. So if I turn the wheel this way, it's going to push that weight into that tire a lot faster, generating more grip more quickly. And that's what we want for the racetrack especially, right? So a really cool system. What are some of the other things that change? Steering, right? The steering will change a little bit.
Throttle response.
Throttle response, which changes the mapping of the throttle, right? In normal mode, the throttle mapping will be a kind of an arc this way, right? You go to the throttle, it takes time to build speed, right? When we go to sport mode, it kind of goes the opposite way. It peaks like this. It's great for driving around town from stoplight to stoplight or getting on the highway, right? It kind of jumps up and goes. So it's a little bit more of an arc, a little more peak. When you go to track mode, it's more linear, right? It's on a graph like this. So if you ask for 50% throttle in track mode, it's going to give you that 50% throttle, not arc up and kind of flatten or build up to it. So try to notice these things, right? Of course, the exhaust change, right? We get that nice rumble when we start going up through the modes, wakes up all the neighbors in the morning, right? I always put my truck on like quiet mode at 6 a.m.
And it still wakes them up.
You don't? You let them know you're moving? Yeah.
Hey, they can go get buy one too.
They could. Just have a whole battle out there, right?
Yeah.
One of the other things we're going to do when we start doing we're going to do that one practice run for our time run and two time runs, right? Another thing we're going to have you guys play around with, experiment with, is our no lift up shift. So for those of you that have a manual, we can do that no lift up shift. Basically, you keep your foot on the throttle, you shift the gears. You're just using the clutch shifting, and it allows you to do that without over revving the motor. With the manuals as well, we have our launch control, right? So what we'll do, and we'll walk you through this when we get up there. But with launch control, we can pull up to the line. We can go into the track apps, find the launch control settings, and we can set an RPM. It has a range, right? I think right now most of them are set about 4,600 RPM. When it's time to leave the line with that launch control set, you basically clutch in, first gear, full throttle, and it'll take it up to whatever RPM you set, right? It has a soft limiter. Takes it up to that RPM. When it's time to go, just dump the clutch. And it takes it up and holds it up there. Traction control will kick in. So we can experiment with that. The autos do not have that. So for you, it's basically just swapping feet, right? When it's time to go, off the brake, on the gas, and go. We don't power brake. Any questions on that? We'll remind you of all this out there because it's a lot. Yes, ma'am.
You said that the steering is different in different modes too, but I didn't hear how.
You'll get a feeling for it.
It tightens up.
Yeah, it's
more
it's a
firm.
It takes away some of the power assist, so it gives you a little more direct connect feel of those front tires.
Right.
Good question.
Where you have the steering wheel, what's that icon above it supposed to tell me?
That's the shocks. So for the suspension on it. And it's just kind of telling you, like, so through here, you'll really feel, you'll get a sense of that body roll back and forth through here, right? Smooth hands, back and forth. Feel how the body rolls through that section, right? On the street, when we go through the modes, you don't really get a comparison, right? Unless you're doing laps around your neighborhood and switching modes.
They're already mad at him.
What's that?
They're already mad at him.
Hide your children, right?
Yeah.
I've got a cul-de-sac fire hydrant on it.
Just drifting the whole cul-de-sac. Now that you know how.
That's called innovation.
Yeah.
Keep the kids inside.
Here I come.
Well, the reason I brought up that icon is because sometimes it shows up on the dash and sometimes it doesn't. And my excuse is technology. I don't understand
There you
it. So.
go. Interesting. All right, we'll look at it as we go through the modes here. But like I say, this gives you an opportunity to run the same course, to try to feel what that mode does, what the changes are, right? Just gives you a little comparison through. With our braking zone, right? So I forgot to mention this in the last group. I probably should have, because they were some pretty aggressive non-brakers. The brake pedal is your friend in a race car. To go fast in a race car, you have to know how to use
those
the
brakes.
and use it properly, right?
Yep.
So don't go in there, turn the wheel, and hope the car slows down, right? You got to use that brake pedal. You set the speed. Don't let the car tell you what the speed's going to be, right? So when you're coming down here, like I said, with this brake marker, we're not braking up towards it, we're braking after it. And even on your time lapse, depending on how you're using the brakes, right? If you have a lot of brake pressure or a little brake pressure, you can brake a little bit after that even, right? Not all the way on the blue cone. You don't have to brake right here. It's somewhere in this range. The way you'll know is what your speed is, how you enter down here, right? So that first run, I'd suggest going down there, get full ABS, as hard as you can on the brake pedal. Really feel how it stops. And then on the runs after that, practice threshold braking.